Hey, Aaron, how's it going?
Good. How's with you, Frank?
My computer just said it just gave me the upright digit.
I love it when it
You
does
know,
that.
that lovely thing. Hey, Aaron, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Welcome. Heck with it. Skip. We've done the intro so many times. You guys ought to know it by now by heart. I know I should too, but I don't. I rely on reading it sometimes, and this is one of those times. So, in all seriousness, how are you doing? What's new with you?
Not a whole heck of a lot. I'm just glad to be done the work week finally. It's been a while, you know. One of
Ah,
those days that never seems to end.
TGIF then.
Exactly.
That's good. Well, you know what? We've got a lot we can talk about. If I can get my computer to cooperate, I can move it over to you and we can have this conversation. You know, I have to buy a new computer. Windows 11 is telling me, or I should say Windows 10 is telling me that I'm too old for you now. You need to update me. And it's punishing me, much like the Leaf defense is punishing their goaltenders. Or is it their goaltenders are punishing their defense? I don't remember which. I don't
It's sort of
know.
a sadomasochistic relationship there, Frank. There's a lot of give and take.
And then the experiment went out the window in a hurry. So will you be putting Sandine and Riley together again? Nope. You saw that interview. It was like he answered the question before the guy was finished asking it.
Yeah. Let me stop you right there.
Nope.
That's a nope.
But at the end of the interview, he said, now, in case you guys didn't ask, no, Morgan Riley and Sandine won't be together again. No, and you know what? They shouldn't be. I'm sorry. It was terrible. It was truly terrible.
That was one of those where you hope it never happens again. I mean, God bless them both. Riley's a good player. Sandine's a good player, but together, it's not what we're looking for here.
Not if you're a Leaf fan. That ain't what you're looking for. And that was like, let's add to the 55 years of frustration. What do you think? And the Leaf fan said, no, thank you. No, please. But still, you know, they're instead of circling the wagons, they're tipping the wagons over.
Setting them on fire. It's basically what it is.
Fire. And complaining about the fact that that's not working out for them. And speaking of not working out for them, well, it depends which way you look at it. Montreal meets Calgary. Calgary takes the lead. Montreal wins.
Finds a way to fight back. Yeah, no, that was absolutely fantastic.
It was like a Leaf Montreal playoff game.
Well, the Habs have been on a bit of a tear lately, so you know it's not entirely surprising. They've managed to get a few wins under their belt. I mean, it's good for team confidence, and Sherratt getting a big point, a couple big points there really definitely helps.
2 goals,
yeah.
So. No, he raised his value.
Indeed, yeah. Well, we'll have to see where they go from here, but.
It's funny, they're trading him and they're benching Armia, who was a Leaf killer in that playoff.
Yeah, but what are the odds they're going to face the Leafs again?
You're really not asking that question. You're not asking that question, are you? Because don't ask that question, because there's Leaf fans together going, "Oh no," and they're counting on their fingers. Going, how many points do Montreal need to get into the playoffs?
Look, I'm not trying to speak evil into existence or anything like that, but I would appreciate a rematch against the Habs. Not gonna lie. And if the Habs are in the process of getting rid of Armia and Sherratt and somehow miraculously make the playoffs, you know, hey.
You're not in a hurry to make it past the first round, are you?
Never have been. You know, I'm just happy to be here.
Oh, I love Leaf fans, especially Aaron. He's one of my favorites.
We try.
The Panthers, Sergei Bobrovsky, he's in a good place.
Yeah, I you know, for the longest time, it seemed that Bobrovsky was struggling, and that stuff that contract that he'd saddled Florida with was going to hurt him a lot. But you know, they managed to blank the Senators 3-0 on Thursday. I mean, the 18 shots that he had were tied for the fewest he's faced in any of his 36 shutouts. There's that to consider as well. But I mean, you know, but before that, he was coming off back-to-back subpar performances against Nashville and Edmonton, and that's concerning in and of itself. So That he managed to put together a solid game and shut everything down completely speaks well to where he's at mentally.
And a good team. I mean, Ottawa was playing well, and
Yeah.
they're playing well. As you said, you've watched them a few times, and you find them entertaining. The Stars are going to meet up with Winnipeg. Winnipeg on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoffs, Aaron, and I'm not really seeing what they need to do, which is back to back to back to back wins.
Yeah, they need to put a string together here, and they're not doing themselves any favors with the way that they've been playing lately. They've been blowing hot and cold more often, cold than not, and it's genuinely concerning. So,
Well, if you're looking for a partner to make your season better, Montreal wasn't Calgary's suitor.
very well played, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'm in utter disbelief that you managed to say that with a straight face.
Suitor, Sutter, all the same thing. It's all the same thing. Many unmasked hockey fans at the Saddle Dome.
Well, when they decide to drop all of the mask mandates and vaccine mandates all at once, that's this is what's going to happen. You get used to it in a hurry, or you sit there and wear your mask at a game. It's really up to you. Here's what I find interesting: the UCP have proposed legislation that makes it illegal for any jurisdiction to keep a mask mandate, which is interesting because Edmonton, as a city, still has a mask mandate in place.
Yes, they haven't lifted it yet.
No.
Speaking of Edmonton, they went to Chicago. My kind of town, Chicago is. And it's apparently Duncan Keith's kind of town.
Yeah, in his first return with the Edmonton Oilers, he got his own tribute video as it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dude's 38. He's on the tail end of his career here, so it's nice that he's being acknowledged.
Absolutely.
But, unfortunately, Edmonton couldn't pull it out for him, and they ended up losing 3-2. But
yeah, they almost did it for 2. They were at 2-2, but went and ruined it with a 3.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is.
Sure did. So Woodcroft, Jay Woodcroft, intermediate review of his season thus far. Are they different because of him? What is he doing differently?
Well, I'm not 100% sure exactly what he's done, but the Oilers are 7-4-0 underneath him. So he's got to be doing something right at this point. What is it you think he's done, Frank?
I'm sure I know exactly what he's done. He doesn't look like the previous coach. The truth is, what he's done is he's been different, and he's been given the opportunity to be different. The team has played better, with him as it did in the past, but they have had their bad days. But now the bad days aren't as terminal as the bad days before he came. So what he's done is he's been himself. He's relaxed, and he isn't over. He isn't overwhelmed by the position, and that's what he's done.
I think the other issue that they've got here, and the other thing that's been kind of a relief for them, is the fact that Mikko Koskinen has finally started to play up to his contract. I mean, in the past few games, he's been a .936 over his past 3 starts. I mean, Smith has been 3 good starts, 2 really bad ones, and 1 that was so-so, which is about par for him. But the fact that Koskinen has picked it up a little bit has certainly helped.
And the fact that he doesn't have the weight of the world on his shoulders, because they need wins. Not that they don't need wins now, but the necessity has been de-escalated, the pressure at least anyway. The necessity is the same. I should alter what I was saying. It's the pressure to win that doesn't seem as heavy.
Yeah, it seems to have backed off.
It gives him a chance to be himself. Again, this is the same thing I said about Woodcroft. Koskinen is a goaltender that Edmonton had in. If you remember how he started with Edmonton, they had a goaltender. He came. They offered him a contract that was reasonable, and then they offered him a short-term contract. Then they offered him a contract that meant that he had to be the number 1 goalie. And Edmonton is what they are, dependent on their goaltending, like every team. But I think it's fair to say that the goaltending wasn't the only problem they had. The reason they have a new coach is because the team wasn't very good, not just the goaltender. It's so easy to pinpoint the problem, and goaltenders are the easiest to blame because when you lose, usually it's because he's fishing a puck out of the back of the net.
Yeah, and the coaches are the easiest one to fire because
they're the only ones you can fire because you can't fire a team anymore. Maybe before, maybe before the cap system, yeah, you could have, but you'd be taking a lot of haircuts, right? But in this case, you can't get rid of players anymore, not like you used to be able to. The Vancouver Canucks scored twice early, and then they beat the Islanders 4-3.
Now, this was actually nice to see. Höglander and Vasily Podkolzin scored about 45 seconds apart midway through the third. Thatcher Demko had another great night. He made 24 saves, and they managed to edge the New York Islanders 4-3. This all happened because Beauvillier had put the Islanders ahead 3-2 early in the third period. That was a beauty. But having Höglander and Podkolzin score back-to-back like that really close together is basically what sealed it. There's nothing that kills momentum more than two quick goals, bang, bang, like that. So,
welcome to the stupid category of the show. NHL agent says Russian players are facing harassment and death threats. Come on, folks. You do realize that there are Russians in Russia who don't agree with what Putin is doing, right?
I mean, let's be honest here. You got Dan Milstein. He's Ukrainian. He represents Russian players. There's not a problem there, right? So
absolutely.
Come on. Like, you got to be better than this, fans. You really have to.
Really,
it doesn't take much to not be a jerk. And right now, y'all are living down to it. These hockey players don't deserve death threats for the decisions made by an autocratic dictator in their home country.
And that you don't know that they even did anything, I mean, you're going to expect the questions, and as Russians, they're going to have to live with that kind of stuff. But at least keep it to a conversation. And a little bit of assumed respect would be nice. You can disagree with where they come from. You can even disagree with them, but to harass and to threaten their lives, that's just that's jail time. And that has to be jail time, that kind of stuff. The Blue Jackets GM strongly denies that Patrick Laine was a victim of trade rumors based on fact.
Well, people make up stuff all the time, right? And Jarmo Kekalainen is right. These sorts of rumors crop up all the time. Some may just tweet something out. I know major sports channels that have been duped by fake posts before. So this sort of thing doesn't really surprise me. There's a lot of people out there that are always, talking about, oh, I heard this and I heard that, and my cousin works as the skate sharpener for, this team, and I heard this, and rumors are going to abound at this point. You just need to realize that everything these days, especially coming into the silly season the way we are, you have to take with a grain of salt.
And it's, let's also make sure that people understand this part too. Our hearts and minds not only go out to all the Ukrainians in Ukraine, but so do our hearts and souls. We believe that they're in a situation that no one should be in. So, somehow cooler heads have to prevail, and we have to truly remember that war is hell. And when you don't invite war, or when you don't take part in initiating a war, that's the worst kind of thing in the world. So let's remember who the idiot here is, who the guy. Mind you, I don't offer any Lindsey Graham advice, and I'll leave that to another day. Appeals to hockey PEI suspensions filed by all 5 players that were at the heart of another situation we're not big fans of, Aaron.
Yeah, these are a group of players that were hanging around behind the net, and basically insulting a black goaltender.
Nice.
Now, they were suspended. The individual who was being insulted was a goalie by the name of Mark Connors. He said there were PEI players seated in the bleachers near his net who were calling him the N-word repeatedly during a game. He told his coach and the hockey PEI investigator in the weeks to follow that the 5 people repeatedly called out to him using the N-word. A disciplinary hearing by hockey PEI agreed with Connors. The 5 players were each suspended for 25 games. They acknowledged chirping Connors when he was tending goal, but they and their parents insist there's no supporting it. Nobody has it on video. You can't prove it. Nobody heard us. No parents heard us. No witnesses in the rink heard it. So, hey, we didn't say it if you don't have proof of it. However, the disciplinary committee obviously found the goalie to be credible enough that they did suspend him. So now, because they're all minors, these individuals can't be identified. They are appealing it. But the appeal hearings have not taken place yet, and their suspensions still remain in place. So I'm hoping that at the end of this, we do get some clarification as to what actually happened, and if those individuals were found to have used language like that, which they should not ought to be using anyways. I do hope that their punishments are upheld.
I would like to think that they're telling the truth. I would like to think that if they're not telling the truth, we will find out they're not telling the truth in a certain way. I don't know, further to be exposed, if you will. That kind of behavior, whether they did it or not, watch yourself out there using that kind of language, talking that way to people is unacceptable. And it might hurt if you get caught. Now, you might get lucky and not get caught, but do you really want to take the chance? These 5 did. These 5 are saying they didn't do it. They do admit that they were chirping him. So, that's, I guess, acceptable when it comes to sports. But I think here's something I'll say about this, Aaron. If I were the people who suspended them, I don't think we should promote athletes chirping each other from anywhere on the ice or even off the ice. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, I mean, like when I play,
that in itself is no good either. That is a bad example. That's starting to, that's the slippery edge of the wedge, in my opinion. Athletes should be respectful of each other, no matter under whatever circumstances. And by respectful, I don't mean you don't try to body check the guy, you don't try to beat them, on the scoreboard and such. But I don't think that kind of behavior is acceptable. That's not part of sportsmanship and sports.
Now, there is another interesting thing here to note. The disciplinary committee also released some information where they said, we found Mr. Connors to be credible. His evidence made sense and fit together with information from sources that were other than him. So it does sound like somebody else did hear these players using that kind of language. They also added that
couldn't confirm the exact words, if you follow what I'm saying.
But they added that during interviews with the investigator hired by Hockey PEI, the 5 players were very careful to minimize their participation or provided inconsistent information. The evidence of the 5 players also did appear to be rehearsed. Mm-hmm. So it's like they all got together and saying, hey, look, we said some pretty sketchy stuff. Well, I think we should get together and try to decide on what it is we actually claim we said, as opposed to what we actually did say.
So now we're talking conspiracy too.
Well,
this will be on Fox before you know it.
Oh, Tucker Carlson, I'm sure, will back those 5 boys to the hilt.
There you go.
Just like he did Russia.
We'll talk about that later. Cunningham has 22 points as the Pistons hold off the Raptors 108-106 for their 6th win in a row. Clean slate for them the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, Toronto's been having significant issues with the Pistons there.
Their old coach, Dwayne Casey.
It's funny,
Remember
Casey,
the guy they fired after he won the Coach of the Year?
Well, Casey is lights out against them, but he's crap against the rest of the NBA. I don't know how that works.
325 against the rest of the league, percentage-wise.
And here's the other thing. Nick Nurse got ejected, too. So that's a little bit of spice for you.
He was not happy.
Yeah, there was some stuff that he thought should have been called that the referees didn't. He brought it to their attention, I think is the best way to put it, with rather colorful language, and they asked him to absent himself from courtside.
His rookie player wasn't happy with him either.
No, no. Well, it is the way it is.
The love in was love out.
I, I
Lighthouse. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say I don't know if you saw the aftermath of the play, but I know Barnes got rocked pretty hard that game too. So
Yes. Yes, and he wasn't a happy camper in that game.
no.
Okay, let's move over to some news. Lighthouse memberships ask entire board to resign. What's this about, Aaron? In
Well,
Saskatchewan.
this is about the Lighthouse Supported Living Shelter in Saskatoon. Now, they've asked the membership of the Lighthouse Supported Living Shelter have asked the entire board to resign because of unethically, immorally, and unprofessional acts. Serious lapses in leadership and governance have taken place, they've said. They're not upholding their responsibility to be accountable and transparent, and have not provided the membership with information regarding recent actions. Now, the membership is made up of volunteers, stakeholders, and donors who all look after this sort of thing. But there have been issues with funding. There have been issues with fines. Specifically in January, Lighthouse was hit with $4,000 in fines after the Saskatoon Fire Department found 42 contraventions of the Fire Safety Act. For places like this that are run by volunteers, that is huge. 5 managers were fired without cause after speaking about the lack of communication from the board and calling on the provincial government to appoint a mediator for things to get done, until finally the membership said, hey, guys, this can't continue. So,
Nor should it.
no, it should not.
So apparently a Florida man got in trouble in Ottawa, 12 years. I guess he tried selling what? A Florida man tried selling some Ottawa land?
Well, it's basically an
Ottawa
online scam that he's been running. Basically, Alvin Lewis Jr. has been convicted of money laundering. They found him guilty of laundering more than $3 million in fraud proceeds by what the U.S. government is calling cyber scams. Basically, there was a scam that included targeting the city of Ottawa's treasurer. The treasurer acting on an email basically sent by this individual. The treasurer wired $97,000 US to a US bank account. Then City Solicitor Rick O'Connor identified Lewis as the culprit in April after the incident was made public in a city auditor's report. This then helped them get the conviction in the States.
Absolutely. Oh, well, you got to be careful, folks. The internet and the telephone too. You got to be careful what you have. All your personal information, keep it. Banks don't need your personal information. They have it already. NATO ready to conflict with Russia, U.S. warns. The concern is, I guess, many are fearful that the Ukraine isn't the ultimate goal of the Russians and Putin. He's eyeing Poland too, and this the north.
Yeah, this is as a result of the nuclear power station in Zaporizhzhia being targeted in the southeast of Ukraine. I don't know if you saw any of the footage last night, but that was just stunning. The Russians claimed that they were the ones that were using small arms and defending themselves, but the video footage clearly shows that they were the aggressors. Using rockets and mortar rounds against the building. Thank goodness nothing happened. That particular power station is actually about twice as big as Chernobyl. So had something actually happened there, the fallout would have been much worse.
The biggest in Europe. The biggest nuclear plant in Europe. Six different. Well, it's huge anyway, and they did shut it down safely, which in itself is the act that the Russians at the minimum needed to do in their minds, because what they're doing is shutting off electricity to folks. And now there's talk about they're also cutting off gas, which offers heat to people's homes. And essentially what they're doing is like a boa constrictor, Aaron. They're just starting to strangle the country into submission.
Yeah, the actions of Russia at this point are basically they're trying to undermine everything. They're trying to undermine infrastructure, trying to take out roads, trying to take out power plants, trying to take out water treatment plants was another one of the things that they were trying to attack. So that's a step by step basically trying to break everything down. So
They're working on an invitation for Putin in The Hague.
yeah, so that's a further development on this. There will actually be a hearing March 7th and 8th in The Hague between Ukraine and President Putin, who also has apparently threatened to invoke martial law in Russia. The Russian parliament, such as it is, recently passed additional legislation saying that any protesting will be up to 5 years in prison. So they're definitely trying to clamp down.
Not only that, you can go to jail for discussing the fact that Russia's involved in a war, because they're not involved in a war. They're involved in a special operation.
Yes. Wow.
I
One
did
man's
my homework.
special operation is the other man's ground war. So we'll leave it
Yeah,
at that.
and they're breaking laws. They're using carpet bombing, which is illegal. They sign treaties with the UN and other countries that there's things that you're going to do during war that, all right, you're doing that, and then there are things they say you shouldn't do because they're inhumane. Well, the problem with Putin is he doesn't understand the difference.
No, and to him, this is all advancing for his ends, and he's going to make up any reason he can to try to justify it.
Yeah, when it comes time, if ever he is actually they have the power to make him accountable, he'll pull the Trumpian move, which is, I didn't realize what I was doing was wrong.
Hmm.
I just didn't realize. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter whether you realize, folks. People who do things willfully that kill innocent children, destroy families, force people to rebuild their homes. It's not something that we should ignore and not do something about. Well, that little Tucker Carlson admits that his support for Russia was wrong. But
Yeah,
it's all Biden and Harris's fault.
After weeks of supporting Russia and defending Russian President Vladimir Putin, he said on multiple occasions that the United States should actually be siding with their former Cold War enemy in this whole fracas. He apparently has been ignorant of the escalating conflict this entire time, which is ironic in that he works for a news organization. So it's not really surprising. His spin to forgive his defense of Putin and Russia was to blame the Biden administration, while at the same time taking a shot at Kamala Harris rather than take responsibility himself. He said that because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden didn't take Russia's military buildup on Ukraine's border seriously, this is all their fault.
I can be the devil's advocate here. Let's see how much do we have coming up. Well, you know what?
Good, you got time.
We got okay. Here, I'm gonna take the devil's advocate perspective here. The one thing that I've heard, because I'm one of those people that doesn't believe in listening to one, well, because we're on this show and because we do this all the time, and I'm actually opening up my mouth publicly, I want to try to be as understanding and educated about every situation when I talk about it. And in this one, here's the devil's advocate perception that I've developed and have I want to share with you, the listeners and viewers, and you too, Aaron. If there's a fault to be had by America, and I can roll up Europe in this too, the problem that they have, and the problem that the free world has contributed to the problem that we have now. I'm not going to argue or well, we can debate it, but I'm not going to take one side or the other than to say this: that America and Western Europe kind of teased Ukraine into thinking they could be a part of Europe. partly teased, and partly because Ukraine wants to be a part of Europe, right? Just like Poland, right? They want to be a part of them. And the rest of them, said, yeah, it's somewhat maybe. But the Americans always said they would never, there was never any plan to bring them into NATO. And one of the reasons they gave was there was too much corruption. And that was just a red herring, Aaron, as far as I'm concerned. The reason the Americans didn't want to bring them into NATO right now is because they knew, back channel wise, through conversations, through Putin's people to Putin and from Putin, that Russia did not want to have a neighbor that was either a part of NATO or a part of Europe. So what's happened is, this is just an opinion on my part from what I heard, because of the pressure within the Ukraine to be a part of Europe. We heard it from their president, right? That he wants to be a part of Europe. And he was saying that before all this came out. So what happened is that everybody outside the Ukraine allowed Ukraine to say things, A, they shouldn't have said. More importantly, B, things neither the United States or Europe could back up. In other words, they couldn't bring the Ukraine into the European family. They were hoping they would. And obviously, America did not want them, any talk about them being in NATO. And that's why that stuff was out there. So in a kind of a way, they were kind of led a little bit down a garden path that they thought would lead to Europe. Instead, it led to being attacked, Aaron. And that's a perspective that I've heard in different places. And it's just an opinion that I heard that to me makes a little bit of sense. I don't know if you can agree or disagree with what I just said and what I heard in the translation I have from other experts that aren't necessarily totally pro-American or totally pro-Ukrainian.
No, and I understand where you're coming from on this, and having a NATO member directly on his borders would be concerning for Putin, which is, I think, why, based on the chatter that's come out of Ukraine, something like this did actually develop. And now,
it doesn't mean it's right. Don't get me wrong. I'm not approving. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm not approving.
What I'm trying to say is, Ukraine didn't bring this on themselves. They had hopes and aspirations of joining NATO. The fact that NATO sandbagged should have been a big enough indication to Putin that he didn't have to worry about this sort of thing. It wasn't going to happen anytime soon.
No.
But instead, he pushed the issue, realized there were a couple breakaway provinces, says this is my opportunity to remove this potential NATO member from the board by annexing them and adding them to our collective,
right,
and making Russia stronger. So let's go ahead and do that. And it's so far, it's been an horrific move. It's not, and the problem is, Putin has played himself off as being the strong man for so long he can't back down.
And it's the Putin-Trump playbook.
Yep.
It's the Putin-Trump playbook. Lie, mislead, and then do everything that you're accusing the other person of doing. Calling Ukrainians Nazis, led by a Jewish president, and then not want to hear his own people, because now, obviously, I don't know, is there, let's see, Putin, what would be the definition of a rhino in not real communists, not real Putin supporters? You know what I'm saying? That's what he's doing by putting them in jail. And people who disagree with him are going into jail. The media there, the media is being, taken out. The only media that can talk is the media that is state run. Independent media is now no longer allowed. They're leaving the country, and I'm talking about Russia, not Ukraine. I'm talking about Russia. They're leaving their country, and now they're relegated to YouTube programming, right? And even, Aaron, I don't know if you heard this. This is the amazing thing. They now are passing information along to Russia because they can't go into social groups, right? Because they've shut down the Facebook thing. They're
Mhm.
going onto the internet, and when you see those places where you want to buy a set of pots, right? In there, they're putting in those places. They're putting in what's going on in Russia. They're telling people what's happening in Ukraine. So they're having conversation within dialogue boxes of basically, you know, um, uh, the dollar store, the dollar store web page. You get what I'm saying? That's how they're
And
getting information now.
that's something else I noticed as well, as individuals were passing information along through Yelp reviews
Yes,
as to what
Yelp
was
reviews
happening.
too. Yep,
And they had individuals who were talking about what was going on and trying to disseminate information through emailing church websites
yep.
and through all that sort of thing. You try to stifle journalism, and it will find a way to work around it. It is
That's right. And if they
it's a
have to,
small comfort at this point in time, but
they'll smuggle. They'll send bottles onto a river to pass that information, because there's nothing more that people want in situations like this. Is they hunger for their information, and they hunger more than anything for truthful information, real news, real information. Not because they're looking for clicks, not because they're looking for advertising dollars, but they're concerned because Putin said one thing that was very accurate. The one truth he said, and it's going to be his worst enemy. The one truth he said is that Russians and Ukrainians are brothers. You can't tell them apart. So, this kind of behavior, this kind of act, this many deaths, and when the time comes, and mothers and fathers of children who fought in this war, who thought they were only going to taking part in an exercise, end up going to war. It's not going to be pleasant for him down the road.
no. And the treatment of captured Russian soldiers is something else as well. They're not being treated in the way that one would be expected in times of war. Um, the fact that Russians are wholesale abandoning their equipment. Um, I find it interesting that currently the Russians are having issues with cold and supply lines and everything like that. You'd think they would have learned from the Germans about 80 years ago with this sort of thing.
Well, you know what? It's violence by definition. It's very painful, and it's very hurtful, and it's something that you know I just, Aaron, I have to say that when I watch this stuff, we're inundated with this information. It's depressing. It's heartbreaking. When you see apartment buildings completely demolished, a hole in the middle of a giant apartment building, blackened by the blackened by the bombs that hit it, and you and I both know, we know people who live in apartments. They're not just they're people. They're elderly people, very young people, children, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Just imagine if that was an apartment building you're walking by in Mississauga, or myself up here in Simcoe. So just imagine the pain that people in that neighborhood are feeling, the ones that are still there, the few that are still there, the few that are, you know, holed up in a subway station, an abandoned subway station for your safety. People in across the world, because the one thing that is true is that Ukrainian people reach their bloodlines go everywhere. Here in Canada, extremely. When it's no coincidence that Winnipeg is playing, the Ukrainian national anthem at their games. It's no coincidence that the Ottawa Senators owner, Eugene Melnyk, who's a proud Ukrainian, is going to do what he can to help them. So that pain goes everywhere in the world. We're all feeling it. And And to see that kind of stuff, Aaron, is why I am unhappy with this. Seeing that kind of stuff is why I don't have any respect for a guy like Putin, who, if he found himself outside the president's office and they tucked him away in a nice little jail, I don't agree with the Lindsey Graham comment where someone should, you know, I believe that he should be dealt with legally. I would be heartened. I would be heartened to see him turn up at the Hague inside a cage, having all his atrocities listed one by one, all the people related and or devastated by his actions, an opportunity to speak against him. Because this is horrible stuff, folks. Those apartment buildings have people in them. When we talk about a nuclear plant, did they or did they not do what they say they did? That's not the point. Is that there shouldn't be any warfare around the nuclear plant. A part of the war thing is you're not supposed to kill people inhumanely. The war is about taking over a place. If you cut off their heat, you cut off their power in the middle of winter. Your turn, Aaron.
No, it's the absolute inhumanity of the decisions that are being taken at this point, and the escalation. You see the footage of people who are piling books in their windows to prevent the glass from shattering if their building is hit. You see there was one particular photo of a father who was staying behind to fight, who still had the toy ambulance that his 8-year-old son had given him in his hands before he was going to go enlist. All of this should never happen.
And please remember, folks, we talked about this earlier. This is not Russia against the Ukraine, because these people are brothers and sisters and family. This is about a maniacal man with this idea of superiority, that he has the responsibility and the ability to deny people their right to self-determination, to election. This is the guy who came into Russia as an elected official, who, upon being elected through time, did what Trump was trying to do, and that is guarantee his power, consolidate it at whatever cost. No cost was too little or was not wanted. Anything, he was willing to do anything. And he would not be in power today if the Constitution, I'm saying this about a Russian president in Russia, he would not be in power today, Aaron, because they had term limits when he got into power. So, this is a guy who reflects on history and talks about history and how important history is, and how we should look back and lovingly look at the way, make Russia great again, if you will, if I can use that term. And he doesn't care how he does it. He doesn't care who it hurts. And folks, the people that are dying are Ukrainians, innocent Ukrainians. But you want to know something? You're not going to like hearing this, but I think innocent Russian soldiers are dying too, Aaron.
No, and it's nowhere more evident than the footage that you see. These were badly trained, partially trained, ill-equipped, under
fodder,
basically up front with the most. And he's turning around and just throwing them into the jaws of the machine.
You can bet his best buddies' kids aren't there. You can bet his best buddies aren't there. War is hell, and they say it for a reason. And I'm not saying it as just a wonderful little statement. So, my issue is, like I said, did Ukraine fall into a trap of dreaming too big, moving too quickly, basically inviting this action by the Russians and by a paranoid Putin who saw this as those filthy Europeans are coming closer to me, because that's the way he thinks of Europeans. They're Nazis. He wasn't just talking about, Ukraine. He's talking about all of them outside of Russia, they're the enemy. Think about how Trump spoke about Democrats. Think about how Democrats speak about Republicans. These are not people talking about people. These are sides talking about sides. And thank goodness they call Trudeau names. Thank goodness in this country, violence is not where we go. And this is violence, folks. We all can disagree. We can all protest, Aaron. But killing people because we don't agree with them? Because that's what this is all about. He doesn't agree with the Ukrainian people. So I got to kill him because they can't be a part of that. It's disgusting.
Now that we have actually come to this in an age such as this is a very large warning sign.
I have to say, Aaron, if tomorrow the Russian problem disappears, we still got a really big one south of them. A really big one, and east of them, I should say. We live in a world today where democracy, real democracy, is a cherished opportunity, a fleeting one. We hear in the United States, if you follow the news, when they talk about, it's a democratic experiment. They call it an experiment because it can never, you can never take your foot off the gas of democracy, because as soon as you take your foot off the gas of democracy, in other words, you push for democracy, keep pushing for democracy, because when democracy stops working, when we stop working on democracy, you're not going to like what replaces it. You really aren't. And that means everybody, my leftist friends, my rightist friends, my whoever you are. We're lucky here. We can argue, and we can call the prime minister names, and we don't go to jail. Just imagine, folks. I'm continuing with my rant. Imagine, folks, if you said the kind of stuff that we've heard in this country about this prime minister, whether it's true or not. I'm not here to debate the truth, Aaron. I'm debating the fact that you're allowed to say it in this country. And if you don't know you can't say that in Russia, then you've got your head in the sand.
No, there's a profound difference, and to compare Canada to a communist state, and to compare
I didn't mean to
Canada
do that,
to
by the
one,
way. That's
no. Let me work through this here, Frank.
Okay.
To compare Canada to a communist state or to Russia, because you feel that your freedoms are being impinged upon, I got news for you, sweet Chuck. It's not a loss of freedoms. You're looking at a loss of privileges. There's a difference. It's not a problem. It's an inconvenience. You have free speech here. You know how I can tell you that? Because there's still people spouting off every day, calling Trudeau a Nazi, going after him for blackface, which he's already apologized for, calling him a racist, calling him a groper, calling him corrupt because he's friends with the Aga Khan. All of this you can say in Canada without repercussion, pretty much. The only thing that might happen is you'll lose a few friends along the way, and dinners at Thanksgiving will be a little extra quiet because nobody wants to talk to you because you're a jerk. But you have free speech.
You definitely do. And as far as we'll take an Aaron and Frank view of the truckers' convoy at this point, because the segue's been made. So somebody's got to stop Putin. I want him to do it legally. Just want to make that clear. Within the law. No one's above the law, in other words. When it comes to the truckers' convoy, I support everything they are for. I support their saying it. I support their protesting it. I support the fact that they do feel that way, and they have every right to express how they feel. I also feel they have a right to march. I also feel they have a right to sit and protest. Here's what they don't have a right to do. And my fellow convoy lovers and friends who don't like me because of some of the stuff I said, I will say it again. When you plant yourself in protest, that's understandable. The point is to get a message across. When all the media spreads your message, it's time for you to stop interfering with people's lives. You don't want to be told whether you should have a needle in your arm. You don't want to be told where you can or cannot go. So do the people feel the same who lived around what you were doing. I wish you could wrap your heads around that and understand that's why what the prime minister did was right. We can argue about how he did it, but you can't argue about whether he was right or not, because it was the people who lived there did not want to listen to you or deal with you on a minute by minute basis, 24 hours a day for a few weeks. They had enough. So they exercised their right to kick you off their porch, which is what we're all entitled to do. You can complain, just don't get in the way of my life. Because if you're complaining about me making your life, you're dictating that you don't want to be dictated to and forced to do things. Don't do it to other people. They get to complain too. That's why, you call the police and you say, I think they're breaking the law. And you had plenty of time to make your point. And you should be grateful that you had that opportunity and you didn't go to jail.
I think the easiest way to sum it up, Frank, is this: your right to protest ends when your protest starts infringing on the rights of others.
Because we all have rights.
And one of the things that these protesters were key on was their right to move about freely and do their own thing. And by parking their vehicles in front of Parliament the way that they did and taking over
The
city streets, you were infringing on the rights of other people to move about freely. At that point, you are no longer a protesting force, you're an occupying force. As a result, you can be treated exactly the same way that the military would treat any other occupying force. You're gone. You're done. You came, you peed on the fire, you're not getting invited back. That's the way it goes.
Oh, they can go back again, but it can't go to what it did this time. And it all comes down to, we all have, legitimate reasons to protest. Their protest was legitimate. They had a right to protest. But so do other people who are going to protest against what you're doing that is no different than what you're accusing others of doing. So, what's good for the goose, my friends, is good for the gander. And that's
Yes,
why
sir.
you got dragged off the streets. Not because your rights were being denied, but because other people have rights too. Oh no, Aaron, how can that possibly be? How can my rights not be more important than someone else's?
Well, you're just the specialist of special snowflakes, aren't you there, buddy?
Well, I don't think it's right. I think I should be able to do whatever I want. And I always liken it to the kid in the mall. The mother's trying to drag out of the store, and he's kicking and screaming and yelling. And mother goes, "You got to do what I say." "No, I don't have to. Make me."
Okay.
And here come the tow trucks. So all kidding aside, folks, look, you get to complain. We get to call. I don't agree with the name calling of the prime minister. I don't agree with that kind of disrespectful talk. I believe in mutual respect. And the key word in that is mutual respect. Not just my respect, not just your respect, but our respect. That's what life's all about, folks. And if you don't respect somebody and they can call the police and they can do it that way, don't be surprised when the bracelets come out.
You're not wrong on that one, Frank.
So don't be surprised. So yeah, so and as far as some of the incidents that happened at the end, not happy. I'm not happy that horses went through a crowd. I know you want to insert your comment on that. They knew it was coming. They should have got out of the way. All that kind of stuff. I agree with that wholeheartedly, 100%. They should have got out of the way. But I still don't like it when I see old people get trampled by horses. That was a sight I don't want to see in Canada. And I only mention it now at this moment, Aaron, in a productive, constructive, critical point. So next time when something like that happens, we have to do a better job of listening, communicating, and how we act. And that's on everybody's part. I'm not pointing at just one side here.
No,
We all
everybody's
have
got to
something to
listen.
learn.
Everybody's got to listen.
Everybody. Well, it's been a thrill. So we hope we haven't. I could hear some fuming people in the background. Yes, I think I can. I can hear them fuming, going, "Those son of your." Yeah, well, you know what? It's all in fun. Fun in the sense that it's great to have communication, folks. We need to communicate with each other, and there's nothing wrong with being wrong, because sometimes when you're wrong, it leads to being right. Until you know you're wrong, how can you be right? That's my simple opinion. Aaron,
Well
you give
put,
you
sir.
the final word.
Oh, I think you've summed it up nicely.
Okay, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci for Aaron William Freeland. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live. Aaron, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao for now.